Hello, good afternoon, good morning, depends on where you are. And we're going to be starting in a few seconds. Let's wait for more people to join the room. Welcome to this webinar. So let's see. Well, hi everyone again. So let's get started. We're going to run through a brief introduction and then I will hand over to Joan. So let's see. For those of you who don't know Joan or me, my name is Gerard Chiva and I'm the Managing Director of Active Solutions. And we have here today with us Joan Diaz, who is an experienced agile coach with lots of experience actually in distributed teams and remote coaching. He's also an AKC, accredited Kanban consultant, and co-founder of the meetup group Liberating Structures in Barcelona. And last year, he was also part of the organization of 2019 Conference Agile Spain. So, and who is Active Solutions? Active Solutions is a management consulting firm. We work with digital businesses to enable growth and market leadership with our consulting, coaching, and training programs in innovation, digital product management, and lean organization. And we also accompany leadership teams in the process of becoming modern digital product organizations. This webinar is the last one of 3 webinars we have been running on the topic of distributed organizations from different perspectives. And after this one, you will get an email with a link to this recording and also to the 2 previous recordings. So you can take a look and watch previous webinars if you didn't. So, Joan, all yours.
Okay, so thank you. First of all, thank you, Gerard, for giving this space to talk about high-performance distributed teams. And also thank you for all these webinars that you have been doing during this last year and especially these last webinars during the lockdown. So, okay, I'm here to talk about high-performance distributed teams. And I would like to do this by sharing with you a beautiful journey that I have been involved in these last years. Thanks to this journey, I had the opportunity to get to know such inspiring people from different countries, cultures, and religions. And thanks to this journey, I also had the opportunity to work shoulder to shoulder with awesome teams that were made up of cultural mix. So I worked with people from different countries: Italy, Brazil, Venezuela, India, China, Germany, Romania, and also from Israel and Palestine. And this journey made me change the way I thought distributed teams were working. So in order to cover all these things, first of all, I would like to share with you the purpose of this webinar. So what I intend to do in this webinar is to show you where I think you should keep an eye on when working with distributed teams. I will also try to give you some examples, some situations that I was involved with, also some tools and some techniques that I usually use, and maybe can help you for you as well. I was thinking when I was doing this webinar, creating this webinar, I was thinking with different kind of people that maybe has already started working with distributed teams before this lockdown, and he was struggling with some topics and needs some kind of new point of view and wants to know which is the other people is doing or something like that. Also was thinking with managers maybe, or people with an entrepreneurial mindset that after starting working with distributed teams during this coronavirus crisis, they thought that, oh, maybe this is a really good opportunity to start working that, and this is the future, so I want to know more about that. Or also this kind of people that never worked with this kind of situation, and currently he's working from home because survivability, and they have doubts about if this is going to work, but they want to know more information about that. Okay, so first of all, I would like to cover some kind of definition in order to be sure that we are aligned with some kind of things or some kind of words like high performance teams, collocation, etc. Then we will cover the three main points with environment, agreements, and communication. And just at the end, I would like to talk about people, because actually teams are covered by people, so it was really short thing about people. Okay, so starting. Definition, collocated team. Collocated is something that is this picture. So it's a group of people. They have face-to-face communication and collaboration. And the important thing here is that this group of people is working in the same room or really close to them. It's not a collocated team. It's that people is distributed. They are in the same office, but they are working from different floors, for example, or in different parts of the company. So they have to be really in the same space. They have to have this kind of face-to-face collaboration and communication. Usually, these kind of teams, they are also cross-functional. This means that people inside this team has different knowledge and skills. But I will talk later on about what is a collocated or not collocated team, because there's some kind of people that's creating some kind of teams that they're in the same room, but there's not this kind of face-to-face communication. And I have some doubts if this is a collocated team or not. We will talk about that later on. Distributed teams, like this picture, could be a team that is distributed among different offices. This could be, and maybe I have a team of 5 people, and 3 people are working in Barcelona in one office, and maybe the 2 other are working. The 2 other are working in London, for example. This could be another example of a distributed team that all the team members are remote, so people are working from the home or from wherever they want. Example that I said before, a team of 5 people, you can have maybe one working from home in Barcelona, another one in London, Paris, New York, I don't know, wherever they want to work. Or another example could be, another case of this variation could be that a mix of them. So you have people working from one office and other people that they are remote. This could be an example that this team of 5, you have an office with 3 people working in the same office in Barcelona, and then one is working from, I don't know, New York, and the other one from Rome, for example. Okay, another thing, just to be clear that we are talking about the same, is with high performance. What does it mean, high performance? There's a lot of definition on the internet, and there's a lot of ink that people has already wrote about that. But first of all, I want to be clear that for me, there's not such a high performance team or low performance team. I think that a high performance team, it's not something that you arrive to a point and say, okay, I'm a high performance team, so let's call it a day. No, I mean, it's like a journey that you want to do. This is continuous improvement that you're doing day after day. It's the art of building an environment where teams and people can flourish. And this is one of the definitions that I really like about high performance teams. And this is this is the model from Leading Teams by Richard Hackman. And this is going to be the driver of this webinar. So I'm going to go back to this definition after each of the 3 main points. So just to be clear, a real team, it's a team that it's a bounded team. They know who they are, and they have a delimited authority, compelling direction, meaning that there's a specific end, but not a specific mean. The 3rd point, enabling a structure, and they have a core norms of conduct, right size, diversity, etc., etc. Supportive context, meaning that the information flow among them, there's a continuous improvement, a sense of support, and a positive working relationship with them. And the last point, I think that's also important, that it has an expert coaching. I think this is like sport teams. All the sport teams has a coach. Even I think that also the sport that it's just one person. For example, Rafa Nadal has also, in tennis, Rafa Nadal has also a coach. So I think that the figure of a coach, it's really important. Some sport teams try to do this kind of coach and player, but seems that it's not working. So why not at working, we need also a coach. Okay, so let's dive in. First of all, environment. This is not a proper office, right? I'm sure that nobody of you would like to work here, like 8-hour sit here. Well, maybe this in the 15th century was the state of the art of the office, and maybe people were sitting here with laptops built up of stone. But I think that currently this is not the case. So choose your right equipment to work. It is really important. There's a lot of people, I heard a lot of people these last days that all of us are working from home, saying that they have back pain or neck pain, that the chair that they are using is really uncomfortable. So if you're working from home, choose the right equipment, choose a proper table, choose a proper chair, invest some money in your keyboards, or maybe 2 screens, or new headsets, whatever. And when saying you, I'm also saying that maybe the company has to invest some money buying this kind of equipment for people that it's remote. We talk about the environment, the equipment. The next thing is choose the right place to work. I mean, if you're working remotely, it means that you can work from wherever you want. But you have to choose a right place to work also. Remember that you are working, you are not working, okay? Because some people say that when you're working from home, it's not really working. That's not true. And I think that all of you already know, because all of us were working from home these last days. So choose the right thing or the right environment to work. So you need something that you have to focus, and also you need a really good internet connection, because not just for you, it's also for your teammate. Because if you're working from here, yeah, it's really annoying if you cannot send emails or message, and you cannot communicate with your peers because you're having problems with internet, and also people calling you because need your help, or you're in a meeting and your voice is cutting off, or maybe your image is frozen and people have problems. So think about that, because I think it's really important. Also more related with offices and people that it's working with distributed people, but in the same thing, the same team, this is not a proper tool to work with distributed teams. This is really annoying, because it's you cannot hear properly the other people, you cannot see the faces of the others, you don't know how many people there's in the room. So if you are in the office and you want to hire people and work with distributed teams, something like that, invest some money buying equipments like this, that you have remote control, where you can zoom in, zoom out, and manage the camera. So you can write something on a whiteboard, and then people can easily see that. And you also have more than one mic, so you can put different mics on the table, and you can easily see, hear the people. I think that makes sense to invest some money in these things. And also, I think that this solution from Owl Labs, I think it's really interesting, because on the top, they have this more than one camera, so you have a 360 degrees of all the room. Also, the mics are really good. So I think it make completely sense to, I encourage you to invest some money in these things, because you're going to appreciate it. Another thing is the infrastructure. So I'm sure that you have to be sure that all of the people that is working these teams can access to the tools that you have. So they have to access to them wherever they are. So or rather you have a VPN connection, or you have all the software on the cloud. So you have to be sure that these people can access, and then there's a good security, so people can go there and work without any kind of problems. So I'm sure that if you are 100% cloud company, you have already started working with distributed teams, or people working from home, or remote, or something like that. If this is not the case, I'm also sure that you're having a lot of problems these last days in order to help the people of your company to work from home. So it's a thing that you have to keep in mind if you want to keep working like that, because maybe you have to change the VPN or some kind of connection that you are using. And maybe it makes sense also to have an IT team that it's responsible or is in charge of this infrastructure. And this is also money. So keep an eye on that, because again, as I said, it's really annoying if you are working from remote and you cannot access to the tools that you are using every day. Last thing related with environment, this is the typical physical board that Agile teams use with these post-its and all these things. Currently, there's a lot of solutions that you can use online, like, I don't know, Jira, Kanbanize, Linkit, Kanban Zone, Swift Kanban, etc., etc. There's a lot of things that you can use. Although, I mean, if you are not an Agile team, I think that you also need these things. If you are working from remote or a distributed team. Because I'm saying that, because these boards, what really help you is in order to visualize the work. In the first instance, what you're going to have with these boards is to visualize the work. If you visualize the work, then you can manage the work. So this is going to help you a lot with different situations in order to understand what the team is doing, in order to avoid that two team members are working in the same task at the same time, and the communication between them in order to understand which is the task that are blocked, and if you are stuck in one thing, etc. So I think that make totally sense, although you are not an agile team, to have this kind of solution also implemented for your team. So as I said before, this is the Hackman model that I said at the beginning, and this is more or less the connections that I found during the environment. So there's an enabling structure with the equipment and the tools that help the teams to perform, also supportive context with the visual agent, the work with this work that I was talking before, and also the cloud and the VPN are ready. With the coaching, I think that a coach can support the team to visualize their work and understand how the work flows. But I think it's really important. Agreements. Next step. First of all, with the team that it's distributed, you should agree how do you want to work. This means that makes sense for me, makes totally sense to meet with the people or with all the team. You can decide what went right or what went wrong in previous teams that you have already worked, and try to decide then how do you want to work, or which is the environment that you want to set up in this current team in order to have some kind of etiquettes, understand what is the other one that's preferred to do, how you work, how do you like to do these kind of things. There's a lot of ways to do that. Usually most of the agile teams already do that, and they like to call like team agreements. Also people say ground rules. Also in the coaching jargon, people talk about that as a DTA. It means that design a team alliance. So I think that this is really important in order to be sure that you are in the same page related with how do you want to work. It's important that also teams that they are distributed, all this documentation, it's also in the net or it's uploaded in anything, any software that you have in order to share documents. That could be Confluence, for example, if we're talking with Atlassian solutions. So all the people can access to this document whenever they are, and also they are live documents. So you are improving these documents every day in order to be sure that they are updated. This is really interesting because you can also use this kind of agreements if you hire a new member, because during the onboarding you also can cover this document, so more or less the new person that you have hired can understand how the team was working or it's working right now. And at the same time, this is something that you can start doing right now. I mean, at the end of this webinar, you can talk with the team and start having this kind of agreements. Well, maybe not at the end of the webinar, maybe tomorrow or during this week. Another thing that it's not less important, I think that is as important as the team agreements and how do you want to work, is defining where you want to go. This means defining the purpose, the mission, and the vision of the team. Defining the end, not the mean, because you have to define where do you want to arrive, and then the team has to figure out how they want to do these things. I think that makes totally sense to be talk with different parts, not only define these things with the team. I think that also makes sense to talk with business people, product people, different stakeholders, because the point here is, or the idyllical situation, if you can align all this purpose, mission, and vision of the team, you have to be aligned with the company goals in order to be sure that all of us, we are rowing in the same direction. But at the same time, you have to be aligned also to each of the team members has to be also aligned their values with the purpose of the team. If you have this kind of perfect situation, that I'm sure that all the people will have a really compelling direction, and the team will be really motivated in order to go for it. There's different tools that you can do these things. There are two really famous ones. One is the Inception, coming from the book Agile Samurai, and also another called Agile Chattering from the book Liftoff. I think that both are really important. I think that the first one, the Agile Samurai, is more based on projects, but I think that makes sense also for different kind of teams. Another thing that makes sense to define with the team and agree in advance is the performance. This will depend on on how the company, the values, the structure of the company. I mean, there's one hand, if you have these kind of companies that has an annual budget, I'm pretty sure that you have already defined some kind of performance, like a predefined performance contract. I mean, these kind of contracts that you do at the beginning of the year that really banded with your bonus and also with the budget of the company. So you already have these things. So you have more or less, you can measure your performance. But I really encourage you to do also to measure the performance, not just for the person, for the people itself, also for the teams. However, I think that the best situation in order to that really fit with high performance teams, they are distributed now in this case, is instead of doing this at the beginning of the year, make more sense to review the performance at the end of the year. And this means you should create a kind of a structure where you inform the team or you agree with the team, which is the key indicators that you want to track or to follow because are important for your company. And then define these things in advance and then check them with hindsight. This means that you have these metrics and then you can review it at the end of the month or at the end of the year in order to understand if you are performing better or worse than before. There's different ways to do that. I think that there's a famous case coming from this Swedish bank called Handelsbanken. It's really old, this example, but they were using some kind of internal and external benchmark where they were comparing, for example, this team were able to compare what they did in the last year. So they're comparing if they're improving or not. They at the same time, they are also having an internal benchmark comparing the performance of one team with another team in order to understand, in order to know which was the best team. Be careful with this solution. Be careful because they were able to do that because each of the teams were independent and they were working the same products and they were located depending on the geographical part. So they were not. You have to be sure that you have this kind of situation because it's not you can start a fight between the teams that nobody wants. I think also Volvo was doing some kind of things like that. Another thing that you can do is also to have an external benchmark. So you can compare what your team is doing with the competency, with another companies of your same sector or whatever. So you can know if you are the best or you are close to be the best or not, or you are really far from them. There's more solution. There's currently the really famous OKRs, objective key results, where you define one objective of the company, and then you have some kind of key results. How do you want, or do you think you will, or you have the hypothesis that reaching out these key results, you will reach out also the objective. I don't know. You can also think about doing some kind of 180 or 360 team assessment. That could be really interesting as well. One more thing that this year, with the communication and related also with the technology, is currently nowadays we have a lot of ways to communicate with our team members. There's a lot of channels that we can use: WhatsApp, email, call, video call, Slack, or whatever of this kind of instant message tools that we have. Also, you can write a comment on your ticketing tool like Jira or something. I mean, I heard a lot of people also this last day saying that they finished the day working from home really exhausted because people is trying to contact them from different channels. I understand that because it could be a really nightmare, and I think that we are creating a lot of waste with our communication. So it's really important. I think that it's really important I really encourage you to define with the team and agree which is the channels that you want to use to communicate among them. This means that, for example, in one team that I was working with, they decided to use Slack, that this was an application that for internal message, for regular message. And then they were using WhatsApp for urgent topics, and then the email, they were not using the email, for example. Another thing they worked for, they were using the email, but just for reports. But it was not the main channel to communicate. Last one with agreements. Distributed teams, although you are not saying them face to face, they are people as well. So as a human being, they are going to have conflicts, heated discussion, arguments, etc. And so I really encourage you to define How do you want to deal with it conflicts in advance? This means that only distributed teams has conflicts? No. I mean, regular teams also, collocated teams also has conflicts. But I think that usually it's easier to solve a conflict when you are face to face, because maybe at the end of the meeting, or you can approach this person and say, hey, can we talk for a moment? And then more or less you can talk about this topic. Usually when you are distributed, it's not as easy as you are face to face to have this kind of moments. And maybe you said, well, I will talk later about this person, and then this moment never arrive. And then you can create this kind of small snowball effect that the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I think that you have to try to avoid these conflicts and then try to manage as better as you can. And take into account that John Gottman did a research that he found that 70% of the discussions in a system, and when I say a system, could be a couple or also a team or your friends or whatever, the 70% of this discussion won't never be fixed because are about the same topic. So I'm sure that if you think about the last discussions that you have with your partners or with your friends, they are related about the same topic, or 70% are related about the same topic. So the thing that you have to do with these kind of agreements and dealing with conflicts is know how do you want to fix the conflict or the thing or the issue. What do you want to do is to manage this conflict the best way for all of the people that is implicated in that. This means just having a conflict protocol, for example, defining the do's and don'ts that you want to like or you want to avoid when there's a conflict. Also, maybe doing some kind of workshop with non-violence conversation. And I don't know, there's different ways that you can manage these things, but it's important, or trying to also to avoid conflict behavior, something like that. Okay, so as I said, the part of the Hackman, we talk about the real team with the team agreements, also the compelling direction with the vision, mission, and purpose, plus supported them by performance metrics, supportive context, communication channel, and manage the conflict, and the coaching, because I think that he or she can support the team to build up, respect, and update all these agreements that you have defined. Okay, so communication. I put this first picture here with this guy with this kind of SOS or Mayday message, because I think that the communication is an endemic issue. There's on all the companies that I work for, we have problems with the communication. I'm sure that you have communication problems sometimes with the family, friends, partner. So the thing that I think that you have to keep in mind is that how collocated teams communicate is different how distributed teams do. And you have to keep an eye on that and inspect and see what's happening there. Some companies move to collocated and cross-functional teams because they realized that they had a problem how they were organized before. The structure that was before for really hierarchical companies that the people were organized with the skills, it seems that some companies realized that it was a problem and they had to fix it. Is this famous example coming from the NASA that in one operation, I don't remember the operation exactly what was, but talking about the NASA, I guess that they were trying to launch something into the space, but it seems that they were working in this big project with one team, and this team was located in, there was one part of the team with one skills in one part, another one with skills in another part. So they're working on that, and then at the end of the project, they merged all the data, and then they realized that one part of the team was working with the international system and the other one with the imperial system. So it was a mess, and they have to restart some of the parts. So when you find things like that, makes sense. For example, what NASA did, that to make all the team in the same room and create this kind of face-to-face communication in order to help the communication to flow. This is what face-to-face or collocated teams try to fix. And this is why also the Agile community is also trying to do this kind of things at the beginning of this century. For this reason, I also said at the very beginning that if you set up a team that they don't have this kind of face-to-face communication or this kind of osmotic communication that Alistair covered, say in his Agile framework, crystal clear, I'm not sure if you are a proper collocated team. So anyway, the point is, if you have a distributed team, you don't have to go against these principles. This doesn't mean that you don't want this kind of communication flowing. But the life conditions change right now. Since that the communication gives us the opportunity to do this kind of communication, seems that the society is also asking to be distributed or be in another place and work from wherever we want. And also seems that the companies has the opportunity to hire people from different countries and add more diversity and hire the best people, and without having to move them to the location that they are, the office. So for me, we have to help the distributed teams to make this information flow. And doing that, this is not like pushing harder and smarter, all the things that worked before. Because doing this, the only thing that we are doing is moving forward to the past and looking backward to the future. So we have to inspect and adapt and keep an eye on these things of the communication. So one of the things that I started doing with some of the teams that were working remote, it was one of the things coming from Lisette Sutherland. First of all, you have to agree on the channel that you want to communicate, okay? So now it's the moment to work out loud. Say whatever you're doing in this channel that you have agreed with the team. And this means to talk. I mean, say something that I'm going to be off. I have a meeting with somebody and we decide that. I deployed the service X, Y, and Z into production. I don't know, but try to talk out loud as much as you can. And you arrive to a point that you think that you are over communicating. First of all, celebrate it because you are working out loud. And then if the team feels or you have the feeling that you are overwhelmed by all this communication, then it's a good point to improve your agreements, change how you're communicating, and maybe decide that, I don't know, these pictures of little cats, we don't have to send it in this channel, or maybe you decide that this kind of information make more sense to move it to email, and so you can release some kind of things of your agreed communication channel. Another next step that we did with the communication with the distributed teams, we started using David Marquette's intent-based leadership that it's based on his book, Turn This Ship Around. For this reason, I put this ship here in the picture. And also we started using some kind of things from sociocracy. I'm not saying that we started using the whole framework or the model that sociocracy and David Marquette's intent-based leadership. We just take it some kind of things. I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg. But I think that really helped the team. For example, we're having problems sometimes, or some kind of awkward situation that happened that, as I said before, somebody wrote on the channel, I deployed X, Y, and Z to production. And that's it. And people saying, what? What are you doing? I mean, today is Friday. We cannot release on Friday. Or maybe people saying that, why he moved these things to production? I thought that he was going to do it tomorrow. I was preparing these things that I think that it's going to help him or whatever. So what we start doing is using this kind of communication that's really subtle, but we, instead of saying I deploy X, Y, and Z to production, we were saying I intend to deploy X, Y, and Z to production. Any objection? And with this little change, we help the people to give all this information in advance, not just after that, after being doing that. And at the same time, we open the door also for having this kind of conversation that, hey, wait a second, I have an objection. Today's Friday. You cannot deploy on Fridays. Is what we agreed. Okay, so that's it. Or maybe I intend to deploy, so somebody can say, hey, I'm working on these things, and I think that can help you. What do you think? And you can create this kind of conversation that it's really helpful, and I think it's really healthy as well. Okay, last things with the communication, meetings. Meetings with distributed teams, with all these video calls, they are really different from face-to-face. I'm sure there's a lot of people also here saying that they end the day being really exhausted about meetings and meetings and meetings. And I think that it's normal because when you are in a video call, the flow of information is different, the volume of the people talking is different, and your brain have to think more than double than before because they have to think about how to remove the noise, the background. And also it's really hard to recognize the facial expression of the people. So this kind of non-verbal communication, it's really difficult to understand when you're in a meeting. And also, if you want to talk, sometimes it's difficult. It's hard to find what is the moment to start talking. So you have to cutting other people off when you want to talk. So it's really exhausting. And at the same time, people that is in this meeting are in front of the laptop. So they are also one click away to minimize your work at your meeting. So I hope that you haven't done that today. So then they can minimize the meeting, and then they are like, no, they can start working, or they can start surfing the net. So I think that when you are doing this kind of meetings that there's people remotely, or all the team is remote, I really encourage you, first of all, to don't do really long speeches. So try to avoid what I'm doing right now. Send the agenda in advance. Also define which is the outcome of the meeting, and all people know about that, and it's clear. You can review that just at the beginning of the meeting. Also help people to participate, ask questions, be sure that not all the voices are listened, but at least most of them, and so people feel engaged on these kind of meetings. Also, you should enjoy sometimes, or most of the time, some awkward silence in order to open the door to people to talk. I think that it's really healthy as well to close the meeting. And closing the meeting, I mean that define which is the action items that you decide with the team at the end of the meeting. Also gathering feedback about the meeting, how the meeting went, what is the things that we can improve for the next meeting, etc. And also, and the last one with communication and related with the meetings, it makes totally sense for me, or the experience that I have with this kind of meetings and this kind of teams, is to have a facilitator on the meeting. This facilitator can be a coach, or somebody also that it's coming from outside the company, from outside the team, or can be also maybe somebody inside the team that when you begin the meeting, you can agree who is going to be the facilitator. This is because I'm sure that you have been to this kind of meetings where 80% of the time, only 20% of the people is talking, right? And I think that with distributed team and these video calls, this thing is even worse. I think it's like 90% of the time is talking 10% of the people, or 100% of the time it was one people talking. So I think that a facilitator can help in order to avoid this kind of situations. They usually know different techniques, can help you to define a clear agenda, also can help you to change the agenda during the meeting if they feel that it's needed, or the team think that it's needed. Also can help you to be really tied to this agenda. And also be sure that nobody's hijacking the meeting, that all the people is talking. So I think that it makes sense to have a facilitator there. Or maybe with these kind of things and keeping an eye on these meetings, you maybe realize that there's some unnecessary meetings and you can remove them. So related with the Hackman model, we talk about enabling structure with the intent-based management and sociocracy, supportive context with working out loud, and the coaching with this part of the intent-based management, sociocracy, and also a facilitator. And finishing, just 3 slides related with the people. One thing that's really important is with distributed teams, you can hire people from different countries, different cultures, different whatever. So you have more diversity, and this is really good because the more diversity you have, the more creativity we will have in the team. But at the same time, keep an eye that the more diversity you have, the less stable or less stability you're going to have in this team. So as Tuckman said on these different 4 stages that have each team, that forming, storming, norming, and performing, I have the feeling that if you have a lot of diversity, you're going to have like a loop with these different stages that you're going to go back from performing to storming, the norming and performing, because this kind of storming sometimes will come up. Also, maybe you can jump the norming phase. So you are going like performing and then storming, performing and norming, but you have to keep an eye in this kind of situations, this kind of teams where there's a lot of diversity. Also, important is, okay, you are distributed teams. I don't see your faces, but you are still humans. So make totally sense also to have this kind of things where you gather all the team in one location, and then you can do some kind of team buildings or workshops or work together for 1 week. Decide which is the frequency that you want to do that. But I don't know, maybe there's people that decide to do it monthly or maybe 2 times per year or something like that. But it's really nice also that you socialize and all the team has the opportunity to be face to face and share some good moments. And the last one with the people, trust. Trust is paramount with this kind of teams. You have to trust in the system. You have already decided which is the agreements, how you want to work with, which is the goals, the performance, the purpose of the team. So let them work and trust on the system. And there's something that you don't like it, just say it aloud and try to fix it. But trust in the system and try just to, I don't know, to check the performance metrics that you have already decided, maybe once per month or something like that. So you can all together can check if you are moving the needle or not. Also, I think that Patrick Lencioni in his book about these functions already talk about that this is like the fundamentals in order to create a team that don't have any kind of dysfunction. And just one finishing. So this is what really changed what I think about distributed teams. Taking all these things into account is a lot of effort, and you have to work on them on a daily basis. You cannot relax. You have to improve day after day. Otherwise, the team will be outdated soon because the environment surrounding them will change for sure. So people like to compare high-performance teams with sport teams, but the sport teams spend like 90% of their time working out and just 10% performing. This doesn't mean that you have to start pulling some iron at work, but think about that. At work, we perform 100% of the time. There is no room to work out and improve. But I think that high-performance teams do need to work out so they can learn, improve, grow, and evolve. I think it's really important. I'm an agile coach, so I think that an expert coach can help you with this kind of things, and also to help the team to use the collective resource well in accomplishing work. This means solve communication dysfunction, asking questions about particular decisions, coaching or closing also all these feedback loops in order to be sure that the information is flowing. So distributed teams and these distributed teams needs this kind of, let's say, healthy distributed environment to flourish and performing. And building up this environment is like being in shape or eating a balanced diet. You have to be there day after day. So thank you very much. Gerard, I think it's your turn again.
Yep. Thank you, Joan. Lots of insights, lots of information. I think people will have time to review everything you said and take some notes because it was a lot of content. I'm really thankful for that because that's what we like to do, provide a lot of content to people, quality content like this one. So thank you very much. Just before going into the Q&A, so at the beginning, I forgot to tell everybody that we had a Q&A block at the end. So if you have any questions, it's your time now to write them on the chat. There are few already, but you have time. In a few seconds, we will go through those questions. Also, just for those of you who are not aware, we are running the next release of our live online lean product management training in 2 weeks. We have the Spanish group starting on the 7th of May and the English group starting on the 5th of May. Exactly the same, but 2 different languages. So you can take a look. There are just a few seats available. So if you want to be part of this cohort, just register in these 2 links. So questions. There are 2 questions. If there are more questions, you can just write them now in the chat. I'm going to be going through them. So first, Adam is asking, why would high-performing team need expert coaching? Interesting question.
Yes, I think that I tried to cover it during the webinar, but and maybe this could be a long discussion. But first of all, is what I said about sporting, for example. I think that this comparison is good. I think that somebody that it's not doing the teamwork, but it's helping the team to do the work. And from the outside perspective, I think it's really helpful. I think that, as I said, that really in this last slide, that can help with this kind of communication. Also, asking questions about particular decisions is really important, because some kind of moments that the team has problems in order to avoid some conversations, and putting, I mean, just doubting about all the things that we are doing is the right way or not. I think that's some coach has these kind of tools that can help the team in order to improve.
Cool. And Alvaro is asking, besides the patients, what is the best way to make management and customers believe that the team could do it?
Yeah, patience is needed for sure. I think that the thing that you have to give to customers and management is what they are asking for, right? I think that what they need is that the product that they are delivering is improving. So if you have a direction and you have agree what do you want, the best thing that you can deliver to them is what they are asking: a really good product with high quality, and it's really tight what the customers need.
So some more questions coming. Mark is asking how in a huge team can you control all the conflicts, even if you try to be present in many meetings?
Well, I think that the key thing here is, well, I don't know how big this team, but the thing here is that you manage and you give tools to the team in order to manage the conflicts. I mean, you're working with adult people, so they're not children. They are not kids, so you don't have to be there in order to solve all the problems. But I think that makes sense to give them a framework or some kind of contract where they can understand how they can manage these kind of conflicts, and so they can talk and arrive to a point that it's not needed that both sides agree on that, but at least they understand each of the parts and then can arrive to a deal.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that providing them with a framework and also helping them agreeing on how to deal with conflict, and maybe providing them some tools, because there are some tools that help. Sometimes probably there needs to be I don't know the word in English for that, mediator. So someone who sits in the middle if the conflict is harsh, to actually move that forward. But hopefully you don't need to get to that point. But yeah, that's a great point.
Exactly.
And Mark is also asking about meetings. My main problem is to make people participating. Any device to enroll people. For example, we're changing the moderator of our dailies, but still some points. I don't know what comes after, but still. So basically the question, some tips and tricks to engage people.
I don't know. I would like to go to the root of the question. I mean, if the people is not participating, is it related because they don't see the value of this meeting? Maybe you should try to agree with the team where you are doing this meeting. Maybe there's some kind of misunderstanding, or maybe they don't understand why you are doing that. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Because I don't know, there's different tools that you can use. Maybe I remember with one team that I was working in order to make this kind of dailies more funny. During the Fridays, we change our names, for example. And maybe you were doing a daily with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and I don't know, and Barack Obama. So I don't know.
As long as it's not, well, I won't say the name. So, yeah. To add to that, in last webinar we were discussing about how to engage people too, and that's so not how to engage people, but one of the things that we see when going remote, if you have not yet had this experience before, is that everything that was dysfunctional when going remote or distributed, it's much more dysfunctional. So maybe if people is not engaging in a meeting, or a meeting is not working, is not the reason. Is you don't have to look at the reason because you're distributed. It's because before it wasn't either. So you need to go, as you were saying, Joan, you need to go to the root, because maybe it's something behind scenes that's happening there, and you need to dig a bit deeper there. no more questions. So last chance, if anybody has a question, to write it in the chat. Otherwise, we will call it a day. It's 50 minutes already. So we are fine. We'll wait a few seconds. No more questions. Let me review the chat just in case. Also, I'm just taking my time to to mention something. There is a book that is really, really good. Actually, I hope I would have read that book 10 years ago and not just recently, because I read it, I think, 2 years ago. It's called Extreme Ownership, and it's written by a former Navy SEALs team lead, which was deployed to Iraq when the second war over there and it's really cool, the approach that these people take with regards to leadership and team performance. So if you dismiss all the bellic stuff that happens there, all that these people, the Navy SEALs, go through, and how do they prepare for death, and I mean, it's an awesome book, actually. I would really recommend to anybody involved in leadership positions or team coaching. Their approach is really interesting. So, there's another question. Yeah, there's another question. It looks like a question. No, Mark, if you are asking about the book, it's called Extreme Ownership. I will write it here. So there's another question. Well, it's not exactly a question, but I want to read it. I've been inviting people from other depths to our daily meetings in order to create new debates or give other points of views. I've been doing this during the lockdown. It works for us now. Well, it's not a question, it's just a comment. Okay, cool. Yeah, also, yeah, well, you can say, I've been talking to Mike already. So, Joan, if you want to say something about that.
Once again?
So that Danny is saying that I've been inviting people from other departments to our daily.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the more people, the merrier. But yes, as I said, take into account that people should participate or not. Maybe they attend and they're just not attending the meeting. I don't know. If it works for you, cool. Let's do it.
Yeah. Cool. So let's call it a day. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining today. As I said, you will receive an email in the next few hours with this recording and also the link to the 2 previous webinars that we run on the topic of distributed organizations. Again, thank you for participating. Thank you, Joan, for your webinar. It was really awesome, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.